Hi, I'm Andy. This is Python Puzzles. Let's take a look at VS Code and how you can use virtual environments inside that IDE. I'm just going to use the code from Puzzle 1 because that gives you a good demonstration of how you're going to use VS Code to do these puzzles. Okay, so first off, go to the Puzzle 1 repo URL. It's in the description. Click the code drop down, copy the URL. I showed you how to use the GitHub desktop when I did the PyCharm video, so I'm just going to show you how to do it in command prompt again. So I've cd'd into the folder where I want to save all my repositories, and I'm just going to use git clone. And I've also got git installed separately at this point. And I'm just going to hit enter and let it download the code. And there we go. And there's the puzzle code there. So if I open up Visual Studio Code, the first thing I want to highlight to you before we do anything else is this extensions option in the left menu. You have to have Python installed, a Python extension installed. So type in Python. If I click the top one, I already have it installed. But the reason you need this is, unlike with PyCharm, which is built specifically for Python and comes pre-configured with everything needed for Python, Visual Studio Code is kind of language agnostic. You're really able to use it with anything. I use it with a lot. I just prefer PyCharm for Python, but I do use VS Code a lot. So you have to download this sort of extension so that it knows that the text you're typing isn't just text, it's Python code. So download that, click install, and then when you usually install these things, they add additional icons down the bottom of the taskbar, which you'll see in a second. So if we click the Explorer icon up the top, just click, you can go File, Open Folder, or you can just click that button, and then we can navigate to wherever you've saved your puzzle. I would choose the puzzle, not the folder that the puzzle's in. I say that because if I chose Git repos here and I wanted to have puzzle 1, puzzle 2 down the side, when I go to create these virtual environments, it will create them at the top level. So it would have Git repo and then the virtual environment, and then and it just gets confusing. So it's easier just to open up the folder itself if you're a beginner. Get rid of the welcome screen. So we've got main.py. If you click that, all this stuff appears down the bottom. Now this, in the bottom right corner, you might have this flashing yellow saying no interpreter found. For me, it's picked up the system-wide interpreter. If I click it, you have this drop-down menu. So you would have this, if you get Python installed, any version, you would have it listed here. I've got Python 3.12. You could just click that and you can use the system-wide version. But using this, if you've got any dependencies, any imports at the top of the file, they're going to be installed in your whole system. In that virtual environments video I did, that's the big purple box, your whole system. So you might need to uninstall, reinstall things to get the right versions. For these puzzles, you can probably get away with this. There's not that many imports, but if you click that again in the bottom right hand corner, we're going to do the create virtual environment option. VENV is the package that comes with Python 3 as standard for creating virtual environments. Conda is another one. There are more. Let's just stick with VENV. That's what I use throughout this course, the standard one. It's asking you what version of Python do you want to have installed into the virtual environment as the interpreter. So you might have different versions listed here. I've only got version 3.12, so I'll select that. It's picked up our requirements file, which is the list of all the dependencies. So you can just tick that and it will automatically install all the dependencies for you. So just click OK. And we see it down the bottom here. It's doing it all for you. Let's give it a second. It's upgrading everything. It's installing the dependencies now. Open requirements, you kind of see what they are here. Not many. Okay, so if I go back to, you see this changes, it's only going to highlight when you're on a Python file, a .py file. So if I click that, you can see we're now using the virtual environment, and it's just created a folder up here called .venv, and then there's a script folder and everything else. So you could move between virtual environments by choosing this here. Obviously, I just think this is easier for beginners. It's you've kind of got blinkers on, tunnel vision. You don't need to, you might accidentally choose like puzzle 4, but use puzzle 1's virtual environment if you've got the sort of parent folder with everything listed there. I just open up each file and open each folder individually. Anyway, virtual environment's now configured. You can also use the terminal. If you go to terminal, a new terminal. You can also use command line interface in here to manage the virtual environment. You can see it's PowerShell that's being used. You do have the option, if you go to the sort of drop down menu, of choosing between PowerShell and command prompt, and they have slightly different commands, as I'll cover in a different video dedicated to command line. If I do ls, which is a list command for PowerShell, we can see all the files there. I want to cd change directory to the virtual environment folder .venv, and then do another ls command, list, and we can see there's this scripts folder. This contains all the files we need to manage the virtual environment, to activate it, to deactivate it. So I'll cd into scripts, capital letter for the S, and I'll do another ls command. And to activate the virtual environment, you don't just type in activate, you have to type in // in PowerShell. It's different in command prompt. Hit enter, and this signifies that we're in the virtual environment. To deactivate it in PowerShell, you just type in deactivate, and it deactivates it. Now, if you were going to use this, rather than using the sort of Python's built-in sort of virtual environment configuration thing, once we've installed this extension, this Python extension, you would then have to use a command to create the virtual environment, and then use another command to download all the dependencies and the requirements txt. I'm going to cover that in a separate video. So now the final question is, how do we delete virtual environments within Visual Studio Code? Probably if we click this, we can see we'll have this current virtual environment. Probably the easiest way to do this, it's not super user friendly. You can just go to the virtual environment folder, right click it and delete it, move to recycle bin, or find it in your Windows File Explorer and delete it here. Either way, just delete that folder. But we'll find that if I click escape to close this and drop down menu, it kind of stays there. If I click it again, it's still there and we're still using it. So to get rid of this, you have to hit this refresh button up the top, and at that point it's gone. It's picked up another one that I've got installed in the system, but the one we had was gone, and now we're using the system-wide version. Yeah, so that's how you delete it. It's kind of like a hacky way to do it. I don't really like it. You could also, if you press F1 on your keyboard, kind of brings up this menu, right? And you can type in Python, and you got all these commands. So press F1 and then select interpreters, kind of like that window that keeps coming up. Press escape to close it. So that's really how you do everything in VS Code with virtual environments using Python. I'll do another video more in depth in the command line next, I think.